Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hearthstone Global Games. It's week number 4, and it's a brand new meta for this format as well. My name is Dan Gaskin, and I am joined by the beautiful as ever, Lorinda, aka Neil Bond. Neil, we've had a couple of weeks off. How's your time been? Have you had any time off?
A little bit. Went to Germany, cast some Copa, had a couple of days off, and now we're back here to see how the teams are going to get on rather than the individuals.
So you have done a lot of casting. You're very, you know the meta now, right? You've had a chance to kind of see what's happened transitioning from Witchwood to Boomsday, and I'm really excited to see what's going to happen this week with decks. But as this is, we've had a 2-week break of the HGG, so let's remind ourselves of the format. So if you don't know the format, we are just going to explain it to you here. Stage 1 is the stage that we're currently in. We are going to have 6 rounds of Swiss, and there are 48 different countries that are taking part now.
Yeah, halfway through that now, and then we're going to get rid of half of those teams, 1 or 2 already starting to drop out, because if you get 3 losses, you're donezo.
Yeah, and you don't want to be donezo. We already have 6 teams that are eliminated, and remember, they are all trying to get to those grand finals. Grand finals are going to be at BlizzCon this year, which is very exciting, both for players, fans, and commentators alike. I'm sure everyone is really excited for the chance to go to BlizzCon. I mean, we've had a fantastic tournament thus far. We were saying how important the last week of HGG was going to be coming into this meta, but really, not that much has changed, has it, in terms of decks?
In terms of archetypes, I agree. The decks have obviously got some clearly obvious cards like Floop being played in Druids. We all knew that was going to happen, but I don't think people have settled on the new tech cards yet. For instance, at Copa, Muzzy took advantage of the fact that nobody was playing Silence because there's nothing to silence, so he brought his off-the-wall Mech Paladin. You need to silence this deck.
And it was fun. It was
fun, and it worked for him.
It did, and it was great to see. And I mean, we were saying how important the last week of HGG was. Let's take a look at the standings and see currently where all of the teams reside, because you know, we got those teams right at the top. They're at 3-0, and we'd like to think if you get to 4-0, you're probably gonna be having that foot in the door for BlizzCon.
Yeah, unless there's something crazy happens, because it won't quite be clean on some of the Swiss rounds. Perhaps 4-0 should get you there, especially with tiebreakers thrown in as well. It'd be an absolute miracle if it did not.
But some highlighted teams up there at 3-0. Czech Republic, of course, previous winners of last year's HGG tournament, and Ukraine, previous runners-up of last year. They're both doing fantastically.
It'd be amazing if they played each other at some point.
Would be great. That would be something to look forward to. And then we have some awesome teams at 2-1. United Kingdom, they're at 2-1. Germany, some big teams. But on the flip side, on the bottom side of the standings, we have some teams down at 1-2 that today will be playing to try and stay in the tournament, Neil.
Yeah, and it's a pretty terrifying bracket just looking through those flags there. As you know, yesterday some people went to school and some didn't with the flags. But Canada, USA, Belgium, France, Finland, etc. Others.
Yeah, just plenty of teams that we weren't expecting to see in 1-2, and of course we had 6 teams that were eliminated yesterday, eliminated last week, sorry. Malaysia, Croatia, Philippines, Argentina, Turkey, and Mexico were eliminated. But you might be wondering, well, what games am I going to actually see today? Well, I think I can tell you. We do have the schedule for this entire week. But first of all, today we're going to be starting things off with Finland versus Sweden, and that is an elimination match. Whoever loses is out of the competition. And then we also have some incredible games to follow, especially with that last one kicking up at the end of the show.
Yeah, Czech Republic versus Ukraine. You just don't want to miss a repeat of a final in any event ever. So don't miss this one, I guess.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss that one. And off stream, we also have these games as well. If that is your country playing or some of your favorite players playing, you can catch those games on YouTube, I believe. They were uploaded usually the next day or at least soon after. But very important games today, as we said, because people can be eliminated from the competition. And that is a scary factor, Neil.
Yep, we've got to start kicking them out at some point. So mainly going to get on with it today. We've got a few already gone, like you've already listed. But getting these teams eliminated from 48 down to 1 is going to take a while, so we've got to do it, I'm afraid. It's a shame to see them go.
It's hard to do, but someone has to do it. First game is going to be Sweden versus Finland, though, and it is going to be an absolutely incredible one. A slobber knocker, I think I would call it. 2 incredible teams full of fantastic players that, I mean, some of the top players in the world, really, are on these teams. And as I said, they're both 1 and 2. Maybe not where we were expecting to see these teams. Talk to me about some of these players. Let's start with Sweden first.
Start with Sweden first. Boston, perennial top 16 and all-around good guy. Very strong finishes a lot. Orange, you may have heard of. He's kind of okay.
Yeah, he's all right.
Arcade and Kenobi rounding it out. Two of the players. They were quite surprise picks for Sweden, I feel. But with Show not entering and a couple of others not being around this time, Arcade and Kenobi, somebody had to take that slot, right? And that's the ones who ended up with it. Finland on the other side, Zump, DreamHack winner. Vardu, DreamHack, HCT Italy runner-up. Just two more fantastic players there. So Janetsky deliberately left him till last there because he was out there memeing yesterday like questions for the casters.
Yeah.
Why are Finland going to win 3-0 today?
Well, why are Finland going to win 3-0,
They're
Janetsky?
not.
We've looked at your decks. Well, yeah, I'm not sure a 3-0 is possible, but certainly maybe a 3-1. Who knows? There are some interesting deck selections, and I'm excited to talk to you all at home about them as well. Because, I mean, I was a little bit worried coming into Boomsday expansion how it would affect the meta. Would it be drastically different? Would we see some of the better teams maybe struggle because the meta would be all over the place? But it has settled. There are similar archetypes from Witchwood, and Witchwood, the end of Witchwood was a really good meta. Like, one of the best metas we've seen in Hearthstone, and the fact that it's carried over, but just with an additional couple of cards, is really nice.
It is still evolving as well. We have got the picks and bans to have a look at to see what they've evolved into.
Picks and bans, of course, an important phase. You want to try and ban away the biggest and most scary decks from your opponent. So Sweden, they lose their Warrior, and Finland, they lost their Zulok, I believe, and the rest of the picks and bans they followed.
Yeah, and some of the things that have changed, like Shaman now is a bit in the air because traditional Shudderwock's not that great in this meta. It's okay. So people have been experimenting with other decks. There's Ike's good Shaman, for instance. And also, we're seeing a resurgence of even Shaman, which Finland have actually brought, and we're going to get to see. So that's going to be good.
Even Shaman is something I saw, certainly Ball Control, testing quite a lot at the start of the meta. Ball Control being one of the United Kingdom players, and it worked out really well on ladder for the first, well, week or so. But then it seemed to dip off quite a bit. But I think it does find a place in the HGG meta.
It looks like it's going to. Obviously, Finland deciding to bring it. It's very hard to know what's good with first week of testing because people like Ball Control, let's face it, they're just going to beat whoever they put in front of them who is also testing new decks. So after those bans phase, the players pick an order for their decks, and this is how they're going to match up.
Very important, of course, which matchup you end up getting. You want, of course, to get your best decks against the most favourable ones, but we're going to be starting off with Rogue versus Paladin, and it's going to be Finland's Odd Rogue against Sweden's Odd Paladin. Now, Odd Rogue hasn't changed too much from the last expansion. Of course, there's like, maybe 1-2 new cards that have managed to worm their way in, but on the Odd Paladin side, certainly Sweden's list, there are a few cards that do just kind of spice up the mix. I mean, Giggling Inventor thrown in there. There's a couple of Blood Knights as well, just to try and answer this giggling meta that we seem to be getting.
Giggling meta? It sounds like a caster meta. Yeah. But no, Blood Knight's fantastic card. Obviously, Mossy Horror, another card we will see a lot of in this meta. And I don't feel the meta has settled yet, like you were saying. I think that people are still in the play it safe phase.
This is also true. I mean, it's settled in a way that I think everyone's found that you've got the same old archetypes and you put a couple of cards in and people are happy with how it is right now. But all it's going to take is one person or one streamer just to make a deck that just beats everything, and then suddenly everyone's going to go, oh, okay, well, this changes everything now.
And that deck is, of course, Good Shaman.
I mean, okay, what's Good Shaman, Neil?
It's just the deck that Ike and Crane built, and they called it Good Shaman. Okay. That's what it's called.
You mean the Tempo Shudderwock Shaman?
If you want to call it that. And boring and precise, of course you could do that.
I think it's an accurate representation.
Vote now!
Of Shudderwock Shaman. Yeah, let us know in chat. What do you want to call it? Good Shaman or Shudder Shaman? But we'll talk about Shamans later, Neil, because first up, Rogue versus Paladin. How are you feeling about this odd matchup?
So as you're saying, even though there's bits and pieces different, Paladin's had a big edge in his matchup for a while, and I don't think these Blood Knights are going to make it any worse, to be honest. In fact, they're going to make it rather a lot better, you would think, for the Paladin. We have seen this matchup go the other way, but I feel like Sweden are looking in a very strong position to ruin Janetsky's 3-0 dreams. Yeah,
starting off with a very favourable matchup is always a nice way to begin a series, but I mean, maybe there is a way that Odd Rogue can get through. I think if Odd Paladin can just completely whiff on the mulligan, perhaps, that's why it's never 100% favoured, right? Because there's always that possibility that the Odd Rogue could just burst through. Is it running Is it running Myra?
It's running. I was just checking that now. That's what this lifting the paper was about. Yeah, it's running Myras, which means that it can have that really big burst finish. Cast Myra's Unstable Element, draw the rest of your deck, which is equivalent to drawing like 9 cards, and then just kill them with Leroy, double Cold Blood or something.
But you have to get to the point where you are ahead on the board when you can actually play that card and then draw for the lethal opportunities. And it is going to be very difficult to stay ahead against an Odd Paladin, which just has so much refill. Mulligan is always interesting off the coin for Odd Paladin. I mean, I'm always tempted to keep level up, but I don't think it is right when you don't have the coin.
I usually don't. This particular hand is very interesting. In fact, mulligans in general now in almost all matchups they've always been super important. I think most people underrate that. But as this meta has unfolded, I think you don't just have to keep curve anymore. You can plan this ahead, and this corridor creeper will come down pretty early. You've got the Righteous Protector if you want to keep it. You've got your hero power. The level up must be tempting, but he has thrown it away. I do understand that. You've got to fight for that board. Yeah,
you need to be looking for a 2, a 3 drop. Well, a 3 drop, not a 2 drop, because you've got your hero power. But on the other side, Finland, well, they found all their early game. Like, that's a lot of 1 drops that is just going to be able to compete with these 1/1 silver hand recruits that are going to be flooding onto the board turn after turn.
Absolutely essential to get these high health minions. So they're all 1/2s or 1/3s if you give some sort of artistic license for Argent Squire, and should be able to keep control of the early Paladin board. It's just a case of whether they can then draw a decent 3 drop and stick it to make sure that the Paladin doesn't get out of control.
It can always be tempting, I think, on this turn to coin out 2 minions just to try and stabilize an early board against the Odd Paladin whilst you have the chance. Whether that be 2 Fireflies or maybe just Firefly and Diamol, for example. Just because you know that your opponent's turn 2 is going to be relatively weak because it's either just a hero power of 2 1/1s or they're going to be playing 2 1-drops of their own.
They also might be tempted to get the Argent Squire down early to make sure it hasn't got a Divine Shield when that Blood Knight turns up on turn 3. Just to make sure they can get rid of those Divine Shields while they've got some value, because they're going to be terrified as the game goes on of playing those, because those Blood Knights, we haven't seen it many times, but we've seen it a few times. They just win the game if they hit much at all.
I mean, on turn 8, if you play Giggling into Blood Knight, it can be absolutely filthy because you've got this massive Blood Knight on the board that's protected by 2 1/2s with Taunt. I mean, yes, okay, they don't have Divine Shields anymore, but still, like, that is just such a nice blockade to be able to push this extra damage through a little bit later on in the game.
Yeah, and just to emphasise here, Finland do have their own Blood Knights in this match as well. So everybody's going to be... Finland actually have 2 of them.
Ooh.
And Sweden have the 1. So we talked about Sweden's Blood Knights, but they're more common in the Rogue deck because you do run your own Giggling. There's one of the deck lists at Cope who actually didn't bring his own Divine Shields because he was scared of the opposing Blood Knights.
Wow.
So already this meta is getting very much a way of adjusting to what your opponent is doing.
Would you say it's a topsy-turvy meta?
Ooh. No, I'd say it's a bit of a floop of a meta, to be honest.
Yeah. But that's what I love. I love when a meta introduces old cards back in once again. I mean, the fact that Mosque Horror just became so prominent over the past few weeks has been incredible to see. I mean, even towards the end of the last meta, it was even showing up just to beat cards like Spreading Plague, for example. So it is nice that Blood Knight has returned.
Yeah, it's going to make it very interesting when both sides are playing the Divine Shields and the Blood Knights. They're going to have to... We're going to see a lot of roping while they tiptoe around that tricky problem that they're going to have to solve, I think.
The scary factor for Finland here is there is going to be a turn for Sweden where they're going to drop this Corridor Creeper and then it could just compete with everything that's on the board and just be able to trade in over a couple of turns.
Finland also, even though they got that early start they really needed with all these 1-drops, they do need to draw something next turn or at the latest the turn after to start challenging. As you say, Corridor Creeper will be a nuisance. And the board is about to start to fall under this onslaught from the Paladin.
I think Bless Maul, I mean, even though it doesn't look that great initially because you're not developing your board any wider, the fact that you can make these trades on these little pesky minions that have made it so difficult for you to actually put your tokens on the board, it works out quite nicely.
And it's a really sad way to explain things, but basically, if you have more things on the board at the end of your turn than your opponent, you're doing okay.
Yes.
And that will flip back and forth, but the Paladin has that ongoing edge in that they can just make 2 things a turn. And pretty basic explanation level there, but you know what I mean.
Oh, and essentially that is what board control is at the end of the day. The first Blood Knight was found. I guess the benefit of, even though you were talking about Finland needing to draw a decent card here, at least they had the hero power, at least they had the dagger.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it does answer Sweden's maul because it's essentially the same thing. They can also play a salty deckhand and they can charge, they can get this board control back, and then they just say to Sweden, all right, you need to go again. How's your refill?
Yeah, and that refill is looking absolutely monstrous right now. Basically because you have a 0 mana 2/5 in your hand. Imagine if that was a 5/5, that'd be a good card.
Oh, it would. That would be... No one would ever print that.
That would be insane.
That would be silly. But Fungalmancer now being found is pretty tasty for Kenobi if he can get a board wide enough and get Fungalmancer down on 5.
I think with his hero power and his Firefly and a 0 mana 2/5, I think he can get a board wide enough. How are you going to deal with this? You don't want to play the Giggling Inventor, really. You're going to have to, but you don't want to, because if that gets Blood Knighted, you lose the game. But if you don't play it, I think you lose the game anyway, to be honest. So, Sweden forcing that out of their hand.
But what is there from Finland here to, like, this is just horrible. They really need something significant on this draw, and the Fungalmancer is not it.
They're going to have to risk the Giggling. They're going to, I'm going to say they're going to get away with it, but it's just going to get mown down by the opposing Fungalmancer or Raid Leader anyway. And this is how this matchup goes.
You're worried about playing Giggling as well because, I mean, you know there's Blood Knights available for Sweden.
Sure, but if you're in the position where you lose if you don't play it.
I mean, they've got no other option. Like, at this point, they have to play Giggling Inventor next turn.
They can Blood Knight and reload the dagger, I guess. That's sort of board control. That is like having 2 minions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's not pretty, is it?
And they can't do that because they only have 4 mana, so they have to just reload. And now they've got to decide whether they want to Deadly Poison preemptively, because when do they get the chance to play it? Turn 6? Well, they've got to wait. And like you say, not pretty is a pretty good way of putting it.
Yeah, the fact that... I mean, Fungalmancer on 5 is always incredible, but the fact that they have the follow-up of the burst damage as well from Leroy Jenkins too, it means you can be a little bit more comfortable with how aggressive you are on the board, because even if there is some form of removal, if there is some sort of stall, you know you have the potential over the next couple of turns to just find lethal with the help of Leroy Jenkins.
This is where the Swedish team, Orange in particular, and Boston are very meticulous. Like, there is the opportunity that doesn't look right, but they're considering to press the magic button, play a Raid Leader and say, okay, I have 7 things. That's a lot of things. But obviously, making the big minions is the more natural play, and that's the play they've gone with, because let's get some damage in.
Yeah, they were probably saying, like, well, what if they do Giggling on 5? Maybe we want extra tokens just to simply burst through the Divine Shield, but I think with what they've got on the board, they can do that relatively comfortably anyway.
Oh, Finland.
But this is how we imagined this matchup was going to
go, I mean, this isn't some sort of shock. When they saw the lineups that were presented, Finland would have gone, oh, pooped. Game 1 doesn't look much fun. It does look a lot better for them on the rest of the matchups, however, so they won't be panicking too much just yet. We're both just staring at this screen going, how do you ever get this board back?
I think the answer might be Clan Thug now you've drawn it. And even that isn't really getting the board back.
3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, we can see it's not, but from where they're sat, there's 11 there. So if they don't play the Giggling, we can see they lose, but that's not necessarily meaning that's the best way to win. They've got to think, what can we draw that gets us out of it next turn? This makes a lot of sense, because it at least gives them a way to challenge the board if they're not dead. And
yeah, make a 4/4, make your opponent trade into it, but with Leroy Jenkins available, that is going to be, unfortunately for Finland, them going 1-0 down.
1-0?
Yep.
You're such an Englishman, Dan.
Well, I was trying to make out some way of saying, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then I just completely bottled and just went for 0 instead.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, that's even better. I prefer that. Well, there we go. Sweden going 1-0 up in this series, as we said right at the start of it. We thought Odd Paladin should just be able to smash through Odd Rogue, and Odd Paladin is a scary deck when it does just have the power to do what it likes. Odd Rogue just couldn't compete with it early on, even though, what was there, 2 Fireflies, a Diamol, Argent Squire, all the early game, but just no mid-game.
And it looked like they had a chance, though. If they draw maybe a Fledgling or a Thug a bit earlier, maybe they could compete. But when you've got that Corridor Creeper as backup to that hero power, then I think everyone's okay. Then you're in a great spot.
Let's take a look at what the next game is going to be then between these two teams. We have a Shaman versus a Shaman. And
that's boring.
Unfortunately for you, Neil, we're not going to see any good card Shaman. Instead, it's going to be Even Shaman versus the Shudderwock Shaman, the traditional Shudderwock Shaman. Finland on the Even Shaman, Sweden on the Shudderwock Shaman. Even Shaman is an interesting choice to bring to this tournament. I did see Ike posted on Twitter saying, I don't know why teams aren't just bringing good card Shaman, because it seems to be really good in this meta. And I think he even said that teams were silly for not bringing it.
I think he's right. I think they are silly.
You think they're silly?
It.
I mean,
but that's why I'm here and they're a team.
This is also true. You cannot be a team by yourself, Neil. That's not allowed.
I've tried it for many years, but one day I'll get the backup I deserve.
Are you making a dig at me because I was your teammate once? Is that?
I actually wasn't.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Now I think about it, let's say that again.
All right. Cheers. Even Shaman though is moving away from both Shudderwock Shaman and Tempo Shudderwock Shaman. What are your thoughts on the Even Shaman list that they're bringing?
It's very much a board control deck with Zap and the new card Thunderhead in the deck, which I hadn't actually, I mean, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't seen much of it used or anything because I somehow blanked the first 2 days of, I don't know what I was doing. I think I was just too engrossed in playing my own stuff.
And that's the fun of a new expansion.
Right.
You cannot be blamed there, Neil. That's perfectly fine.
Just didn't run into it, and I didn't check all the cards. I just went, I'm going to play whatever this mess is on autocomplete and see what happens.
Sometimes Hearthstone is just really fun, and you do just want to play your own stuff. But
in terms of controlling the board, those 2 cards in particular help so much, and it still has the old Even Shaman tools, all the buffs, has the obviously the cheap hero power, and controlling the board in a minion battle, it's as good as anything.
And it should do, in my opinion, relatively well against the Shudderwock Shaman. If it can build up that early board and there isn't the early clears from the Shudderwock Shaman, the Lightning Storms aren't there, or the Volcanoes aren't there, then they can just run away with it. However, maybe the Shudderwock Shaman can find Lightning Storms, maybe it can find Volcanoes, and if they can get to those turn 7, turn 8, get those stall mechanics out, maybe find Hagatha, for example, then things become a little bit more interesting for the Shudderwock Shaman.
Yeah, and something that used to happen with Shudderwock versus board control decks is eventually you'd get more than 15 health on the board, and then Volcano just didn't kill everything.
Yep.
But now you have Electra Storm Surge in the deck, which enables you to do 30 damage, well, 27, because you have to play the Electra. You haven't completely lost now as Shudderwock if you do lose the board. You do have that one last sort of throw of the dice to have another go. And I think if you can get that off, even if it gets out of control for you, you definitely can still get it done. Plus, Shudderwock versus aggro sometimes just goes, roll Wrath of Air Totem, Lightning Storm you, lol.
And sometimes it just goes Keleseth into Ooze, into Saronite Chain Gang.
Right.
And then suddenly you're like, wait, why is this control deck out-tempoing me here? And, well, that's what Ike then decided and was like, hey, let's turn this into a tempo deck. Let's just start putting good cards into this deck. But I'm interested to see how this matchup's going to go. Like, as I said, personally, I think I'm on the side of Even Shaman, but I can definitely see how Shudderwock Shaman can actually take this one. You can see some of the impactful cards already there for Finland. Merkspark Eel, when it was announced, I was so excited for. I thought this card is absolutely insane.
It is.
And is going to make Shaman crazy. And I was like, oh, it's just if you've got even cost cards. And then it becomes...
Oh, I see. You didn't actually read what the card did. You just thought it was the best card ever.
Yes. And then I was like, it's just even. And the even makes it significantly worse, but at the same time, there's pretty good even cards in Shaman.
Yeah, when you're running this card, it is one of the best cards in the game. Let's not mess around here. This is absolutely crazy. Slightly meta-dependent. I think 2 damage is not in the best of spots right now, compared to some other metas where 3 damage would be really good right now.
Why am I looking at Romania's deck lists right now?
How do you? Get on the blower. Dan's helping.
I don't know how that's just happened. Right, there we go. I have Finland's now. As Boston did throw away his whole hand. He didn't want to Saronite Chain Gangs. He was trying to find some impactful board clears instead, it would seem. And, well, there's one off the top.
And we saw them, how Sweden might have been thinking there as well, because Boston actually hovered over the MC Tech straight away. It's like, this is a good card.
Yes.
We might need this card in this game.
MC Tech has really come into favour as well during this meta, hasn't it? Like against Death Rattle Hunter, for example, it's sometimes
Against
amazing.
Everything.
Yeah.
And what's happened, and I've been harping on about this for about a year now, but minions have higher health totals than they used to have. Minions hang around. Well, if minions hang around, mind control tech becomes a lot better, because with your things with 1 health that are hanging on the board that you're trying to keep alive, if you want to put your big thing down, your 4th minion down, MC Tech just rips it from you a quarter of the time.
I even saw, I think it was a list posted of Malygos Druid running mind control tech as well recently, just because it helps in some of the bad matchups for you. It's just a really nice tech at the moment.
Especially with everyone being able to beat Spreading Plague with like Mossy Horror and such like now.
Yep.
If they go too wide and then you play Spreading Plague and steal some of their stuff, well, now you're not so scared of the Mossy Horror because you've still got half a board left. Perennial question with Shudderwock is whether you totem or not. Tends to be just against Druid where you don't, because you don't want to get it in the face from that Spreading Plague. And in some versions you do, because you've got the tempo that you're looking for. But in this, I think you do it against Shudderwock every time. You want to slow them down. You want to try and get Wrath of Air. You want to try and slow things down any other way you can. A 1/1's handy.
It makes your Volcano worse, is another consideration. It does put more stuff on the board, and I think Boston's reaction is, yeah, they wanted like a 1/1. They wanted something that they could just trade off at some point.
But you wanted anything but this. The other three are all fine.
You don't want anything that is going to stick around and is just going to be an annoyance and actually be bad for your board.
Another thing we need to point out is most of these players are friends on both sides, as in friends with the other side.
Ah, okay. I was going to say, I'd like to think teammates are friends in this day and age.
Again, Dan. With the dream hacks and that sort of thing, the Finland contingent, the Swedish contingent, they do like to chill out together at various events. So.
And I'm sure they will enjoy rubbing it in each other's faces when one of them are eliminated from the tournament.
Sure they will.
Glacial Shard can be very handy in any matchup against aggro. Even Shaman, are they running Sea Giants in the list? Yes, they are. Glacial Shard could be very important.
Yeah, hanging on to Glacial Shard is such a big thing. You see so many people slam it against you on turn 1, whatever you're playing, you're like, unless you're trying to control the board against my zoo or something, and even then it's not always right, just why have you done that? But here, that is the question, if I play the Glacial Shard, can I force them to put a 4th minion down? Because obviously mind control deck, which Boston keeps hovering over.
Yeah,
the
thing is, you hover over your own cards because you're talking to your teammates and you're kind of saying to them, oh, I've got this, but you don't realize that actually you're hovering over your cards might also be a tell to your opponents as well.
Yeah, it's a very difficult tell to pick up, but it's still, with 4 people doing it, hand reading is very important indeed.
It is. It is really important. I know there has been conversations on Twitter about how important it actually is, but I would be on the side of it is extremely important. Even to the point, I remember a player in week 3, it might have been Romania actually, where they were hovering over cards whilst talking, realised they were hovering over cards, and then just started hovering over random cards to be like, let's throw them off here.
Yeah, we weren't doing that at all. Nothing to see.
This isn't a mind control tech.
Another downside, obviously, you mentioned the Sea Giant of rolling that totem on turn 2, is that the Sea Giant does get cheaper if you can't remove it.
Yeah.
Here's the Thunderhead.
But this is going to open up a mind control tech if Boston would like to take it. It's not the best mind control tech in the world. If you're just stealing a 1/1 or a 0/2, you're not particularly happy.
Lightning Storm's kind of tempting, but not really, because if it misses on the 0/3, you haven't achieved anything at all.
It's whether you see this Thunderhead as a hex target. I don't think it is, because you know there are much larger minions. As we get results from off-stream, New Zealand are 1-0 up against Singapore.
New Zealand going well again. I think they were a surprise team last year, and one of the surprise teams that people thought were just, can't do it again, but they're doing it again.
And we have seen some consistency from Global Games #1 to Global Games #2. Czech Republic.
We have indeed,
Ukraine. They're both still up there.
Despite a reasonable turnover in the players, because this year there was a different voting system, fewer streamers, far more pro players and regular tour stop players, with it being a points-based system. Sweden not having much fun here with this Hex decision.
Well, and they are respecting the Thunderhead, which does just open up a Sea Giant possibility now for Vardou if he would like to take it. You saw him hover over it straight away, saying, well, that's one Hex gone. Why wouldn't we put a Sea Giant on the board?
The only answer to that would be, are we scared of Hex 2? But in Hearthstone, you are rarely scared of the... Well, you're scared, but you rarely worry about the second of something.
And this is the thing. It's whether you are considering, all right, we can bait out a second Hex with our Elemental, for example, or we take the risk now and say, well, what's the likelihood of them having their second one in their top 8 cards? Probably not that likely. Let's go for it now rather than later.
And this, to me, goes back to that hand-reading debate that I'm going to bring up several times because it rankled me, Dan.
It rankled you?
It did.
I have no idea what that means. That's some, like...
You probably shouldn't have.
That's some lingo I don't want to ever hear again.
But it was a full mulligan, so they've got a decent percentage read. They can do the math. It's not like they kept one card, and maybe that was the Hex, maybe it wasn't, because you probably wouldn't. But, you know, they did a full mulligan, so it's purely maths whether that second Hex was drawn or not at this point.
Now, this is what we were talking about, the scary factor of this even Shaman. We don't see a Volcano available for Sweden. There is no way to clear this entire board. Yeah, okay, they have Lightning Storm plus Glacial Shard as a really good storm mechanic if they want to take it. But you can see they're hovering over Mind Control tech.
Yeah, now they've got everything out there. There isn't actually that much damage coming in. This is one of the things that the Shaman does lack, is a way to finish games. That's why... Get that. That's why Sea Giant's in here in the first place. You haven't got that Bloodlust available to you. And all the buffs are mediocre for the whole board. Obviously, Flame Tongue's a fantastic card early on. And I think something that Sweden factored in last turn was actually we can just hold the fort for a while here. Maybe we get a Wrath of Air totem, which they have. And then our Lightning Storm becomes good for the rest of the game, basically. Do Finland want to mess around trading into it? They probably have to.
Yeah, you're like, all right. Your board full of 1/1s, well, big whoop. There's not much of a threat. Our next turn, we have the ability to Lightning Storm, we have Mind Control tech available, and another Glacial Shard for your 8/8. And that was why in Board Control's list, he was running the card that allows you to find a spell that costs more than 5 mana, so the chance that you could find Bloodlust for this even deck was actually quite likely.
Okay.
And
That's
it really
sneaky.
added an extra little oomph to the even Shaman deck.
Boar's really good at finding those sneaky little techs. Talk to him about Subject 9 sometime.
I wonder.
It's amusing.
I watched him play quite a lot of Subject 9.
Yeah, he's played quite a lot of it. I was watching him argue with Zalay the other day about that card. Anyway, back to the game in hand. And this is where the Shaman... I think this is the situation where the Shaman just... This isn't why it is not tier 1 deck.
Which one?
This, sorry, good call. The even Shaman.
Okay.
The fact it can't make massive use of these wide boards without putting even more little guys on the board. It is such a downside for the deck.
Although, on Finland's side of things, this is looking pretty good. And they're saying, well, if there is no Lightning Storm, if there is no Volcano, we can just win over the next few turns. Yeah, okay, they have a Glacial Shard, they can freeze our 8/8 again, but suddenly we have a decent amount of damage on this board now.
Yep. I mean, it does mount up, but again, that's the argument I was making. If that had been a Bloodlust, they won at last turn. That's why even Shaman, it could just get amazing. I don't think there will be any board buffs that are odd mana costed printed for quite some time, because it's right on the precipice of being completely insane. But it's not completely insane, it's actually far from that. So working out the best use for their mind control techs, and that's not easy because they're going to have plenty of chances during this game to do it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you have to play Glacial Shard this turn, unless you go mind control tech first, and then you can try and steal the 8/8.
You might want to Lightning Storm this turn because you've got Hagatha on turn 8. So you don't want to Lightning Storm on 7 and get overloaded. That would be a bad thing. So if you Lightning Storm this turn, you can set up your Hagatha for 2 turns' time. Even though it's not necessarily the bestest use of it, they've been trying to hang on to it. With Hagatha as your backup plan, I think that's okay. And they just take an almighty beating for 1 turn from this giant.
It is quite a beating. But they did get a decent pick from the mind control deck.
And they've got another one next turn and a Glacial Shard. So next turn they can deal with a random minion, most likely because Shaman needs this wide board. That you've forced the even Shaman to have a wide board by having your own wide board. even though it's full of gubbins. You can still trade into some stuff.
What are gubbins?
Gubbins is like an assortment of things.
Oh, it's like just like a load of things put together that shouldn't be together?
Yeah, and odds and sods, I think is the phrase.
I wonder.
They're like bubble and squeak.
Yeah, that's just like a dinner that's full of gubbins, right?
Yeah, it's just like all of the leftovers from like a roast dinner, isn't it? Just like chucked into like a bake.
A bake?
Well, don't you like chuck it all in like a pan and then you bake it all?
I don't do anything. I use a microwave.
Of course you do. You still live in the 18th century.
Do they have microwaves in the 18th century?
No, that's why you're so amazed by microwaves now.
Oh, okay, I see.
What is this contraption heating up my food whenever I want it? Oh, there's Volcano.
And also, there was a play around the MC Tech there. They didn't have to go this route at all, but wanting to put lethal on the board, obviously, and they know about the glacial shards. So they've got an idea about what Sweden's up to. But is the Volcano any good at this point?
Not enough. Unfortunately, there is just too much health on the board. And you know what's a real annoyance? That 0-2 healing totem. It's been there the whole game.
It is.
You take that off the board, and suddenly you're fine.
Just trying to work out how much health there'll be on the board should they trade in the 1-1.
17.
There would be, so there would be 6 on the little minions. You've got a good chance of killing off the fire elemental here.
But Life Drinker can put them back up to a respectable health.
Yeah, and again, this is that lack of burst for the shaman, for the even shaman. Just stop me every time you say shaman when there's 2 shamans in play.
Will do. Can I stop you every time you say shaman as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. That is the correct English pronunciation of it, unfortunately. It annoys me because it means I can't pick on Raven, but...
I mean, Sottle still does.
Yeah, but Sottle just breaks the rules.
This is true. He is a rule breaker.
He's a very naughty person indeed.
So I like Chain Gang here. I like protecting my big minions. You are opening yourself up to another mind control tech if you want. Hagatha isn't available because of... Or is it available?
It is available. It will be where the turn 6 Lightning Storm came from. And Finland will know that. I know it sounds like an exceptional read, but they will know that Lightning Storm didn't look particularly amazing. Especially with the options available at the time. So Finland will have an idea that Hagatha's coming, or maybe not.
Well,
or maybe they think this is enough.
Well, the thing is, Hagatha's great, but you can't play Hagatha and trade off with the minions.
Yes.
So you're still leaving 14
and you'll be on 14, so you can't play it.
You can't play it.
Cool. Electra there would have been a full clear. This is where Electra Storm Surge would have come in handy. This is the exact situation where she's used for.
But you want to kill off as much as you can of your own board. Maybe go for... Oh, it's tough because you're not
killing the 6/5.
You're thinking mind control into Volcano, right? But then if you're doing that, what's the point of playing Volcano after stealing a minion? Surely you should just trade off first.
But if you trade off first, the 6/5 and the 8/6 live a lot more often than you would intuitively believe, and so they're going to have to Farsight because they have to MC Tech for a YOLO victory, so they might as well Farsight too. And they hit Healing Rain.
Healing Rain's decent.
It really is. And now they're going to set up the best chance of stealing one of those 2 biggies that they can. And if they win the 50-50, they'll be in a great spot. If they lose it, they're still alive. And then they've got Hagatha going into next turn with a much more friendly-looking board. Good luck, everyone.
That's, as Neil said, a biggie.
Vardu looking there, and he can't see Giant anymore.
As we do just get a demonstration of Thunderhead, one of the new cards from this expansion. And there was a lot of excitement around this card when it was first announced. We were like, well, mid-range Shaman, it's back. It's going to be exciting. And it has found its way into a couple of decks. It is pretty exciting. Meanwhile...
Yep, got the Overload ability to get rid of some of these 1/1s with the Thunderhead in hand. That's a thing they can do.
Stormforged Axe. PogChamp, also a new card.
I mean, who would have thought that someone from 2016 just tuned in and said, Stormforged Axe in everything, isn't it? It's like, but yeah, it's back.
But yeah, of course, helping the Overload on the Thunderhead card we just showed. But this now is just, this board is just flipped.
Yeah, and it's getting into survival mode, and that makes things so difficult. It's not over because Boston's hand isn't particularly absurd, but it's pretty good for what they're trying to do. They can Hagatha and then they can Acolyte Volcano. Yes! I said the Acolyte Volcano meme. To draw 3 more cards and then go into Shudderwock mode.
Fire Elemental was found. There was a chance they could have drawn Alec here there, which would have been a nice amount of burst damage. You've got to remember, Kalamos is also available for this Shaman, this even Shaman deck. And they have a Hagatha of their own.
Yeah, but that's just buying time, and buying time is not what they need right now. This can be a full clear and protect your Sea Giant if you're Boston. You can make appropriate trades, I think, which allow you to Hagatha everything, I want to say. Not quite everything.
No, I think you leave a 2/4 alive.
So you bump into that with your Sea Giant.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I kept a 2/4 alive.
Whatever you say, Dan. Is that some modern kids thing?
You never heard that. But yes, it's...
That would have involved going outside.
Ah, okay, your problem, I see. You're too busy with your microwave.
Yeah.
There is a way that Vardu gets back on this board, though, thanks to that Fire Elemental. Or the Stormforged Axe, actually, if he wants to use it, but depends if you want to take 8 to the face.
Always feels bad when you're putting an 8/4 into your opponent's 2-attack minion, but this is just about survival. This is traditional Shudderwock. It just wins with the Shudderwock combo if it doesn't miss. And if it does miss, it does fine anyway, because you get a board of Shudderwocks.
Zap works out really nicely, allows you to push a little extra bit of damage to face. I don't think you play the Stormforged Axe as well, mainly because of overload things.
Here we go, Acolyte Volcano time. 7, 9, 12 health works out absolutely perfectly.
And those 3 extra cards are so nice as well. I mean, halfway through the deck now for the Shudderwock Shaman.
Someone on Sweden's job will be to count opposing max damage, just in case something weird happened that they'd forgotten about. But there just isn't anything.
Well, Kalamos is something that could come out of hand, but that's not going to kill them.
Okay, Chain Gang found, they hadn't had one previously. And Shudderwock found. So Grumble is a thing they might need, but they might not even need it with the stuff they played this game. Just set up the Chain Gang next turn and then go full walk.
Yep.
Double Life Drinker would have been played by then as well if they go Chain Gang Life Drinker next turn.
No, Neil. You never go full walk. I mean, you've got Saronite, you've got Life Drinker. Well, Bone Mare's nice off the top, though. Makes it a little bit more awkward here for Sweden.
It does?
Actually, very awkward. Because suddenly you're scared about a Hagatha in your opponent's hand if you're just playing Saronite, Chain Gang, and Life Drinker here. So maybe you're having to use that Healing Rain, plus the Chain Gang.
The thing is with Healing Rain, it doesn't solve the problem. The problem earlier was they were going to die, so it solved that one. But the problem now is you have 2 5/5s to deal with, so... Can they work out, would Hagatha have been played previously? I think quite a lot of mana was floated last turn. I know that Boston and Orange don't always agree on every play as well.
I mean,
they've both said it, is that they don't argue heatedly or hate each other or anything. They just don't always agree on the plays.
Name me 2 Hearthstone players that would agree on every play. I don't think it exists. I think that's what makes Hearthstone so exciting.
Paradox and Dan SWF.
No comment.
So what cards can they get here?
Oh, Crushing Hand's nice.
It's pretty handy, so to speak.
But you are overloading yourself, and it means you cannot Shudderwock if you are going to be playing it. But I think that's fine, because you're just about surviving now and getting over that line, because we saw that Finland, they were able to play Bone Mare, they were able to stay in it because of that Bone Mare. But now with just Zap and Stormforged Axe, you've got to say this is probably going to be curtains for them now.
Yeah. Hagatha is sort of their only out at the moment in terms of generating loads of stuff, not in terms of clearing the board. And they don't have that, they don't have the stuff to generate stuff with anyway. Of course, if you have stuff in life, Dan, it makes more stuff. That's how stuff works in the world.
When life gives you stuff, plant a stuff tree.
Stuff tree.
Stuff tree.
And as you can tell, we're into that sort of time of the game where Dan and I just talk to each other about things.
Well, this is what can happen with the Shadowwalk Shaman. Once it finds all those, that one, maybe 2 turns of removal just to stop the Even Shaman from having its insane amount of board control, then it just becomes extremely comfortable. Hagatha was, of course, a massive influence to this game, and even Sea Giant number 2 is not going to be enough to save Fardu here.
And it's going to be 2-0 to Sweden, which, obviously with that head start with Paladin versus Rogue, not a total surprise, but we both felt that the Even Shaman would probably get the better of this one.
Yeah, I mean, like...
But there's probably, and there's 55%, 60%, right? And it wasn't a probably in the real world application of the world.
I still think that Even Shaman has a good shot against a Shadowwalk Shaman. Maybe it is just a little bit too slow, but I thought if they had found maybe enough burst damage, they had found their Kalimos.
If they don't Farsight into Healing Rain.
Exactly, that game was over, right? If they didn't find Healing Rain there. But that is the power of the Shadowwalk Shaman. It does have those cards for those exact reasons.
A little irritating Sea Giant here, because they just want to play Shadowwalk and get it over with here, because they generate enough of a board if they did. But now it's going to be Hex Life Drinker is probably the safest way forwards. Or Life Drinker then Hex, because you get a card from Hagatha.
Absolutely. But I mean, what have you got that you would play over Hex? Another Hex?
Yeah, exactly.
You're definitely going to be playing Hex this turn. Unless, I don't know, maybe it's a freezing ability you play? Or are they just going to Healing Rain here? You could just ignore the 8/8.
I mean, what else are you ever going to use the Hex for is the main question.
Kalimos.
Kalimos.
Alakia.
Sure.
Well, I think when you're presented with the opportunity of your opponent having no cards left in their hand, you can get rid of the only threat they've got on the board. You set up your Shadowwalk for next turn.
And you've got Electra Healing Rain if things get dodgy, or Electra Lava Burst if you want to kill your opponent at any point.
I mean, next turn you've got Shadowwalk, which is doing 6 damage. You've also got Lightning Bolt in hand and then Lava Burst to follow up. I mean, it's over. We know it's over. Sweden know it's over. Boston's already laughing.
You can Electra into Lava Burst and then Shadowwalk when you, 2 turns later, into Lightning Bolt, get the Electra thing twice. I mean, there's so many silly things you can do with Electra. She's quite unassuming. Doesn't really look like it does a lot, because there's not that many cards she functions with. But with the backup of the Shadowwalk into Lightning Bolt later on as well, she's actually kind of sneakily good in this deck.
Now, I'm wondering what the communications of Sweden are, where people are saying, why aren't we just playing Shadowwalk here?
They're probably discussing how to make that lovely, lovely sauce they have on their pizza.
What, Swedish pizza?
Mm. They have like kebab pizza with this sauce on it that tastes divine.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Italy is more known for its pizza than Sweden, is it not?
Yeah, but Sweden should be more known for its pizza.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that.
But the sauce in particular, there's known for the sauce and the kebabs on the pizza rather than the actual pizza. Obviously, Italy.
The sauce of the pizza or the sauce of the pizza?
There's a sauce they put on the pizza after the pizza is made.
Rather than
like,
where the pizza is sauced.
Yeah, like ketchup, but it's not ketchup. It's this sort of pink, tasty, lovely sauce.
So not where the pizza is sourced from, but
no,
the sauce that's on
not the sauce, because they probably sourced it from Italy in the first place.
Right, okay, that makes a lot of sense, yeah. Great pizza is from Italy. Glad we could agree on that.
Well, I'm only agreeing because Falk's out the back there and he'll tell me off if not.
Yeah, that's not a good way to go about life.
You don't want to be told off by Falk. Have you ever been told off by Falk? No. Nobody has. You don't want it to happen, trust me.
And Sweden just deciding they're going to play this one completely risk-free, and they are going to wait as Falk stands in the doorway with his hands on his hips.
See? Look at that menacing individual.
Grumpy Italian would when you start talking about pizza. But no Shadowwalk played on that turn. Like, Sweden just saying, well, like, how do we throw this game away? And I guess opening yourselves up to... nah.
It's lethal! It's Lava Burst with Electra. We get to see Electra in action.
Maybe they just wanted to be clever here. Maybe they just wanted to show off that they had got a Lava Burst.
We have seen people playing Shadowwalk have horrible accidents if they mess with the Shadowwalk. You don't want to...
You never mess with the wok.
You don't. I definitely don't. I use a microwave.
Yes, indeed. It is the best way to go as Sweden, well, they're cruising at the moment, 2-0. Doesn't matter where they're getting their source of their pizza from. At the moment, their Hearthstone is on point. But now, I think the matchups are going to start getting a little bit more tricky for them.
Indeed. Next up will be Orange playing Malygos Druid. Okay, that's a win.
Oh, yeah.
But he's against the Odd Warrior.
Yeah, which I feel like Odd Warrior should do pretty well against Malygos Druid, but Malygos Druid is one of those decks that can just do well against pretty much anything, right?
Especially with Orange piloting it.
Exactly. It's going to be exciting, but we have that to look forward to. First, we are going to take a little break to allow the players to have a little bit of a rest, but when we're back, we are going to have Odd Warrior against Malygos Druid. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games. It's week number 4, and it's Finland versus Sweden. But currently, Sweden are 2-0 up against Finland. They're doing very well, Neil.
Yeah, I'd say that 2-0 is doing very well. One game away from reaching 3-1 in the Global Games. A nice, comfy position with 2 weeks to go.
No, it would be them going 2-2, would it?
Oh, it's 1 and 2, isn't it? Yeah, so surviving.
Both teams
That's a good
are
point.
trying to survive at the moment. That's what the scary factor is in this tournament. But currently, we're going to be jumping into game number 3, which is going to be Odd Warrior versus Malygos Druid. Now, as we said, Orange is going to be piloting the Malygos Druid, and he's pretty well known, I'd say, for...
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Him and Hunter Ace sort of work a lot together on this deck, and the other guy's done quite well as well.
I'd say so. I'd say he's done fairly well.
Yeah,
going
reasonably
into
well.
the HCT. But going up against Odd Warrior should be a relatively difficult one in theory. I mean, what does Malygos Druid struggle against? Anything that can gain an insane amount of armor. Odd Warrior can gain a very good amount of armor. Looking through the lists, they are relatively basic in terms of what they offer, and I say basic because we have seen Malygos Druid try and put like Togwoggle in, for example, and it's like a hybrid that can then make this matchup very different. Azalina can be in the Warrior as well, that can also change
It's
things,
in the Druid, isn't it? So.
Is it?
Yeah, it's in Orange's Druid. It's the Hunter Ace list he tweeted out a while ago that we haven't seen anybody else actually playing yet.
So they're not running Togwoggle and Azalina, but they are
Azalina.
just running Azalina. Okay.
So that's obviously some ways of getting some refill later up, some new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another condition of staying alive. Like, Azalina is a fantastic way just to steal some cards. Maybe it can help out against, like, Dead Man's Hand Warrior, for example, as well. Being able to steal the infinite potential.
Infinite potential. Sounds like me. Orange making the good play of drawing the twig and the nourish there.
No, it doesn't. How do you have infinite potential?
I haven't fulfilled any of it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just there's lots there somewhere. Just need to unlock it.
Big Game Hunter being available there for Janetsky, which is a tech-in that has kind of wormed its way in at the moment. But another off-stream match. We have New Zealand, Singapore. It's 1-1 at the moment. Both those teams are 2-1 in the HCG Swiss, so they won't be eliminated if they were to lose today, but going 3-1 would be great for them.
And the problem when you play this Odd Warrior deck is that your cards aren't that great. They're good enough, but they're not particularly amazing. Obviously, the trade-off is huge. You get this amazing hero power that everybody loved when it cost you 6 to activate it with just a car. So of course you like it now. And Yanetsky sends out the BM because there's no wild growth on turn 2. It's always nice to see.
I love how he's just laughing about it as well. It's so cruel. You're 2-0 down, Janetsky. You said it was going to be a 3-0 yesterday.
Have you met Yanetsky? I think you have.
Yes.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's just... Okay.
I mean, the whole of the Finland
diagnosis.
community is absolutely start raving bonkers anyway, you know, in the nicest possible way. But Yanetsky's kind of the ringleader.
Is that a good thing?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think if your community is not engaged or not excitable, then you're probably doing something wrong. But Finland is definitely both engaged and excitable. And as you can tell, we're engaged and excitable. We're digging in for what could be quite a long game of Hearthstone.
Well, how likely do you think that Odd Warrior would be to actually survive if Dr. Boom didn't exist? If Dr. Boom wasn't added in this latest expansion, do we think Odd Warrior would actually be here?
Yeah, I think he would.
Over Quest Warrior?
Okay, that gives you a different win condition. But the games I've seen with Dr. Boom in, he is more... Obviously, the giving your mechs rush helps you control the late game a lot better. Omega Assembly giving you the mechs to rush in and kill things off. But he's not as overwhelming as you would think just by looking at the raw stats on the card. And yeah, I think the deck can control things without him. But like you say, maybe you'd go for the Quest Warrior instead, so you have that win condition.
Because maybe you're not even playing Dr. Boom on 7. We see it in the hand for Yanetsky, but this armor gain is so important.
Yeah, you don't play it for the longest time a lot of the time. It is just a way of finishing a game off a lot of the time. There's also the thing that Finland have to worry about here with Reckless Flurry when it comes up. Not so important, of course, against a Druid, but in general, there's that weird anti-synergy with Reckless Flurry on your armour. You get all this armour and then you go, I don't want it anymore. And you blow it all up. And we did see in Copa people Reckless Flurrying for like 25 or something ridiculous to deal with a wide board at one point. And then you just get back on with it. You play Dr. Boom, you get some armour back and back on the horse and galloping away.
A mechanical horse.
Probably.
Yeah, that's been created from several different mechanical animals. That's
dinosaurs.
Not a horse, but it's some weird Dr. Boom horsey morph.
Like a cow pig.
Yes.
Something like that.
Pretty much.
Or a cat dog.
Also possible.
That'd be a bit small for a horse, though.
Yeah.
Unless it's a particularly big cat.
So I love Ziliax, by the way.
It's a really good card. But you tend to save it a long time, depending how you're going about this, because obviously giving one of your other things rush and all the Ziliax abilities is so handy.
Yeah, it really is. The rush and magnetic is what makes it so powerful.
But the early game here is very peripheral to what's going on anyway. The Warrior just getting that armour because the Druid does max out much below 39 for the 1-turn stuff, or the 2-turn stuff at least. Especially when Alexstrasza doesn't influence armour. Imagine if it did.
No.
No.
No, I don't want to live in a world where Alexstrasza can get rid of armour and health.
That'd be like a mechanical Alexstrasza.
Well, there we go. Next expansion.
They've started naming things how I speak now, so maybe I've got a chance.
Well, speaking of naming things how you speak, there is Flabidinous Floop. One of mine and Falcone's top 5 cards in the community show yesterday.
I think that's a good call.
It's just insane. And it's what gives this Malygos Druid an even better matchup against something that can gain a lot of armor, because you can do more damage with Malygos plus a second Malygos, thanks to Floop.
I see the Swedish team will be discussing, not just in their own turn now, but constantly in the opposing teams as well. And do you think this is hard for Orange here? He is basically, let's say, the master of this deck, even though there's several masters of this deck. Having an open enough mind to take advice from people who are likely to have less of a handle on the deck. And although Boston is obviously a terrific player, as are the rest of the team.
I think getting someone else's perspective is always a fresh and healthy thing. Yes, okay, they might not know the matchup as well, and ultimately what they're saying may not be correct, but just giving Orange the chance to have a think, and have a consideration and say, maybe you are right, and then he can actually just not get into autopilot mode where he's like, it's just like playing on ladder again.
It's actually how he has become such a great player over the last 12 to 18 months. He was always good and got results, but he was never regarded that highly by his peers until very recently. And it is because he is willing to listen to everybody, no matter how ridiculous. You know, until you get to like your level or something, then he probably doesn't listen to anything you say, but at least within some sort of level.
I'll have you know, me and Orange are quite the chummy pals.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So what's his next turn then?
Hold on, let me just phone him.
Got it. You just see him pick up the phone.
That would be bad, wouldn't it?
That would probably be against the rules, Dan.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be helping Orange out at this point. You're not even Swedish.
I will delete the text. But with Alexstrasza available nice and early, usually you're tempted to take it because you want to have a big minion on the board that maybe your opponent can't deal with. Of course, we can see the big game Hunter, which is not a usual punish. I guess you're not used to it, but it makes sense that big game Hunter has worked its way back into the meta.
Yeah, and again, it's just another tech card that people are fumbling around trying to get exactly the right techs in their deck, and it works really well, especially, like I keep saying, in this Warrior deck, that fundamentally the power level of most of the cards isn't that amazing. Although people are starting to talk about how good Super Collider is. I don't know if that's because people are just positioning wrongly because they're not used to playing against it, or if it's actually good, but heard a few of the pros over various streams in the last few days starting to say, this is better than we thought it was going to be.
It surprised me, if I'm honest, the fact that it is actually in lists.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be.
No, I didn't think it would, and I think even the people who played it, a lot of them didn't think it necessarily belonged, and they're like, need to try this out, it's new, it does an interesting thing. But when you've got so much armor, it turns out you can actually use it to your advantage quite well.
Now, in terms of a Druid game, It's gone relatively well for Sweden. They've got their Twig early, they have Alexstrasza, they've got Malygos, they've got Floop, they have an ultimate infestation that can draw them closer to their swipes and their second Moonfire. And the armor gain hasn't been that much from the Warrior just yet.
No, it hasn't. And it's only going to get worse, so there's no time like the present to start making an impact. Obviously, now the Twig's on 1, anytime they want to go for one of those super swing turns, Sweden have the chance to go for it.
And the important factor for Finland is they are able to clear this board, which makes it awkward for Sweden. There is a spreading plague, which is awfully tempting with a board like this, but now with Swipe found...
I'm not sure what happens here because there is an ooze in Finland's deck. So I don't think that Sweden hang around for that long before they just go for a swing turn.
So are you taking Malygos, hit into face, flooped Malygos, swipe? It's tempting.
It's how you want to use the UI. Do you want to UI potentially now? Yes, I realise it overdraws, so maybe you have to find a way to faddle around with that. Do you want to UI now and see how you do? Probably don't want to burn the Moonfire. That's just too valuable against this much damage.
Well, you're saying, how does my opponent remove 2 Malygos from the board? One of them being a 4-12, the other a 3-4. Okay. Shield slams is a possibility.
So I feel like the play here, they know that there's no ooze, or it would have been used last turn. They know it's not available now. Yeah, they're just going to go for this. Go for the Fluptigos and get the damage in while they've got it.
Yeah, this was what I initially was saying. It clears the board. It's demanding an answer from your opponent. You have an ultimate infestation to follow up that's dealing a hell of a lot of damage next turn. And just looking at Finland's hand, how do they deal with this? They have an Iron Beak Owl if they want to silence
Super Collider.
12.
Super Collider Iron Beak, but it only removes 1 and silences the other. There is a UI in hand for orange. It's awfully close to just ending it all. There's Ziliax if they want to gain health. Drawing that second owl would put them on 16 because they'd have the 2 mana available to tank up, and they'd be taking a maximum of 12. So double owl and tank up does keep them alive.
Yeah, but double owl, you make it a 4-12 as well rather than a 3-4,
oh, yes,
right?
it would be 13 they would take.
It looks like they're going to do it.
And not dying is at least something.
And so, Yanetsky not opting to play the Super Collider. Super Collider being one of the newest cards added to... Ooh, oh, there it is. Just on time. Like clockwork. What is it that makes Super Collider good in this deck, though, Neil?
So against aggro decks, you just end up sometimes clearing half the board because they attack each other, so that's good damage.
It is really nice. It's just a nice ability to be able to trade effectively. And it doesn't cost too much as well for the power, I'd say.
I think that was the thing. I think people thought maybe it cost a little bit too much at first because it's a little bit slow, but it turns out it's just useful at all stages of the game. And it has taken a while, again, for people to get use out of it. And even now, I don't think people are 100% convinced. But like I say, I've seen a few streams recently where pros are saying, oh, yeah, this is maybe the sleeper of the entire set.
But meanwhile, Orange is trying to work out, is there any way to push through here? Doesn't have double branching paths available yet, but he is going to look for it.
And if he finds it,
it is just lethal if he does find it, but he doesn't.
But
he is going to take the opportunity. Yeah, you've got Ultimate Infestation in hand. You take this opportunity now. You've seen that your opponent couldn't remove those minions organically. They had to just silence them.
And you've got 2 6-12 Malygos on the board.
And this is the power of Malygos Druid. Even in a matchup where you're going up against something that can gain a lot of armor, the fact that they were able to get Twig so early, they got Alexstrasza, they got Malygos, they got Floop, they even found the Swipe and the Ultimate Infestation. All the pieces of the puzzle were there for Malygos Druid.
Told you Orange was good.
I mean, he is good. He took that time. He recognized that he needed to just take the opportunity, do that damage when he could. And it looks like Sweden are going to go 3-0 up here.
And that would spell the end for Finland in the tournament, which is a great shame, to be honest, because that's Sottel's pick. No, it's a great shame, to be honest, because they are one of the teams that I felt had a fantastic chance. A very powerful team, very powerful community helps them as well. There's sort of 9 or 10 great Finnish players, but it does look like they are indeed finished for this year.
I hate you.
I know. It's fine.
Omega Assembly, they were hovering over, saying, can they discover a mech that can keep them alive? Of course, they do have Ziliax, which has the magnetic ability as well. But just going to be Doctor booming up, it would seem, to gain enough armor. But we can see the ultimate infestation is there to put this to bed. But Sweden to 3-0, which also puts them at 2-2 in the Swiss. Unfortunately eliminating Finland, and a delighted Orange because he knows how important it was to get that matchup, because the matchups did get progressively worse for Sweden as this series went on. 3-0. Unfortunately, goodbye to Finland.
Goodbye indeed. And you're saying progressively getting worse. There's a lot of difficult stuff coming up for Orange and the team, with them being 2-2, because we read out at the start of the show, loads of teams on 1 and 2 playing today, and many of those teams are regarded as top tier, I would say. So it doesn't get any easier. With this being Swiss, they'll play likely one of those teams next week, or again, someone who's dropped from 2-1, and that's a fairly decent bracket as well.
And, I mean, a 3-0 is always such a commanding way to win a series as well. I mean, we heard Yanetsky yesterday was saying, oh, why are Finland going to win 3-0? So it has come to bite him in the bottom a little bit. But let's take a look at the matchup and see what the final score was and see what decks won against what. If you had just joined us, Sweden, they were able to take a nice quick 3-0 victory. Unfortunately for Finland, they couldn't find a victory. Mori, Vardu and Yanetsky all falling respectively.
And you've got to say, it looks like Finland out-drafted Sweden in this one as well. So it must be even more gutting for them to go down 3-0.
Yeah.
I feel like they had the lineup advantage, but I feel the lineup advantage was born from a drafting advantage where their lineup just was much more likely to get the good matchups it wanted.
Yeah, bans, of course, are really important to try and get the best advantages you can when it comes into those random deck selections. But I'm sure Sweden are going to be absolutely delighted with that victory. I mean, a 2-2 is a respectable scoreline. They can certainly now push on and try and think about BlizzCon. Because, I mean, when you're at 0-2, when you're at 1-2, I don't think you're thinking about BlizzCon.
No, you're
just thinking about actually surviving. The dream is over, unfortunately, for Finland, which, as you said, is a shame because there's some top players in that squad.
Yeah, although when we did the drafters cast, the casters draft of the teams, we did discover there's probably 18 to 20 teams this year, much more than last year. You look at them and go, they've got a great chance. Finland were one of those teams.
Finland were, but it's all about Sweden today, and it means we can have a chat with Orange, who I believe is on the line with us. Orange, I mean, you had a smile on your face after that victory, rightly so, but I wanted to ask you, what's the decision for running just Azalina in your Malygos Druid and not running Togwoggle as well?
It's actually something that my playtesting partner, Hunterace, came up with. He started running Azalina. I don't really know why, but you've been telling me that he started winning the control mirrors a lot more, or the control matchups a lot more. Like, for example, Warrior and also the Druid matchup by getting like more naturalizes by the opponent. The card, so how it basically went is that he explained the card to me and how it worked without Toggle like 4 times, and I didn't really get it. And at some point he just said, you're a filthy casual and I'm not going to explain it to you again. So I started playing it myself. And then I've been liking it. I've been winning Druid Mirrors a lot more, and it's been just like winning me a bunch of games that just Azalina on its own. I tried a hybrid list with Togwaggle, and I felt just that Togwaggle never did anything, and that I rarely ever needed Togwaggle plus Azalina, but that Azalina did the job on her own.
That's Dan told. I think he's a big Togwaggle fan. When you saw the matchups today, did you fear for your hopes? It looked like it was quite a bad lineup for you.
I thought, when I just judging by the deck lists, I felt pretty good about it. I'm not really the guy that does the stats and stuff on our team, and they said it was like all right. It was pretty close. Then after going into the pick and ban phase, we were favored by a little bit, but then after the pick phase, we were actually quite unfavored because we both like the Druid is unfavored versus the Warrior, and even Shaman is favored versus the Shadowbook Shaman, and then we had 2 pretty bad ones after that. But really happy that we managed to get the win in anyway.
Yeah, I was saying how important that Malygos Druid game was, because the matchups afterwards were not looking very exciting whatsoever for you guys. You're at 2-2 now. I mean, what's the mood like between the team? Do you think that BlizzCon is a realistic expectation for you guys?
We are actually, strange enough, even though being like 1-2 before this match, we are like, the spirits in the team are pretty high. We definitely feel like the teamwork is really on point and that we're working really well together. And also we aren't like upset with how we played yet. Like we're pretty happy with our play so far. So we're definitely looking to get out of this stage at least, and I think that we got what it takes to get to BlizzCon. But it's a pretty bold statement, sitting at 2-2.
Well, I mean, you guys can be delighted with a 3-0 today. Congratulations. Best of luck with your games in the next coming weeks.
Thanks, Ace.
Thank you so much. A delightful interview, and I love that when asked about Azalina, he was like, "Oh, Hunter Race told me to do it."
Yeah, I tried it. I didn't like it. He told me to try it again. I wasn't sure. He said, "You're a noob. Get on with it. Play it."
If you can trust anyone, I think Hunter Race is probably someone that you can trust indeed, as we are just going to have a little glimpse back at some of the highlights from this series. But, I mean, yes, he hit the nail on the head, really. If he didn't take that win with the Malygos Druid in Game 3, things got worse. They had to run their Death Rattle Hunter into Control Priest, their Zoo into Control Mage. It just wasn't looking good for Sweden. But the fact they were able to get to that Game 3 anyway, with the Shadowbook Shaman taking down the Even Shaman, it was just a well-performed matchup for Sweden in general.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how different it would have been had they not hit that Farsight play. That was a very difficult turn. A lot of other plays looked like they were better, but they weren't because they actually couldn't survive with them. And so in the end, they did work out they needed to hit that Farsight, and they did hit it well.
Yeah, and look at this. I mean, the fact that Orange was able to find all of the good stuff in his top 11 cards. He had Malygos, Floop, Ultimate Infestation, Moonfire, and Swipe. It was all there. It's disgusting. Malygos Druid is insane when it gets the absolute nuts. And look at the response from Unetsky as well. Had to double Owl, giving a 4-12 on the board.
And that's what we say about Old Warrior. It has that great hero power, but no executes available. Makes a massive difference in those awkward situations.
Yeah, Shield Slam is kind of the replacement, but they didn't draw either Shield Slam. They weren't available. They couldn't deal with the board.
Yeah, they've just been hit for 35 or something as well, so Shield Slam suddenly becomes a lot weaker.
It's not nice, but a very humble interview from Orange as well. I like that he admitted he wasn't the stat guy, and he also said that, like, BlizzCon maybe, but we're just going to focus game after game.
So he's not the stat guy, and he doesn't know how his decks work. Orange, what are you doing on the team?
I mean, he's winning. That's what he's doing.
He is, and he's very good.
Right, we have 5 series today. That is going to be the first completed. Next up is going to be Denmark versus Hungary. We are going to have Falcone and Darok running you through the action. So don't go anywhere. Don't touch those browsers. We'll be back very shortly.